Will there be sin sacrifices for Israel in the kingdom? Giving all praise to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua B'Shem Rukakwadash. And this topic is came to mind because of a bit of a controversy with the Sakari Israelites. They teach that they teach about sacrifice, and I guess they teach about sin sacrifice. And we here in GMS say that, and I want your response from everybody, you men in GMS, you men, you top dogs in GMS, you guys that are really into the scriptures, you know, to do responses to this. So anyway, I heard this in the past, maybe a year ago, maybe 6 months ago, maybe the last couple of days, that Sakari, and mainly it's Deacon Hakar that goes into that, and he said, even the other day, he said there's some, he was dealing with some Christian, and he said he brought up the topic of sacrifice, and he said that they did sacrifice. Paul and them sacrificed, and Deacon Hakar had went to Acts the 21st chapter and the 26th verse, but I'm gonna read. You really should read the whole chapter, but I'm gonna start from the 24th verse. And it speaks about making an offering. And yeah, Paul and them did do sacrifice, but Paul, the Apostle Paul, in the book of Hebrews, you really have to read the whole book of Hebrews. I have to kind of get into the book of Hebrews again, the whole from the first verse to the last chapter, from the first chapter to the last chapter of the book of Hebrews, because the Apostle Paul said a lot. When you go to Hebrews, the 10th chapter and the 11th chapter, but like I said, you have to read the whole book of Hebrews, or the whole epistle. But the Apostle Paul goes into Hebrews, and this was for the Hebrews. This was for the Israelites that knew that they were Israelites, whose parents were Israelites. And he was dealing with the law and the sacrifice and the high priest. Why was he doing that? Because he wasn't necessarily talking to the Israelites in the Gentile state of mind, as we use that terminology. He was going into the importance of going back to the law of Moses, the Levitical practices, the sin offering, the scapegoat, the various ceremonies. And he said that when Yahushua had died and went into the spiritual realm, came back and went back into the spiritual realm, that you don't need to go to a particular high priest and he does the rites for you, the sacrifices, and teaches you the law, because ultimately we will all be priests pursuant to that which was given to Moses. I'm not going to go to the scripture. I'm not even going to mention it. You should know it by heart. But it says we shall be Exodus 4:19. You can start a couple of verses above that, or you can start from the first verse. With Moses the man of the Most High, the first king of Israel. That's in Deuteronomy 33. It says he was a king in Jeshurun. So really the first king was Moses. It didn't mean that he had a crown put up on his head. The first king that was coronated was Saul. And then the ultimate king was the second king, which was David, which is Moses coming back in reincarnation. But anyway, the spirits showed himself and his brother Aaron, mainly Aaron, because he was the high priest of high priests. You have a top number one high priest, and then you have the other priests that were scattered among the tribes. So there was ceremonies, there was sacrifices, various different type of ceremonies that's contained in the law. But in the kingdom of heaven, you can say we will have sacrifices. We will have purification. Of perfect example is your woman having children. Your woman will have their monthly cycle. They will get pregnant. They will go through the stages of the baby forming in the womb. The only thing that's going to be taken away is the labor pains, because that was a curse that was put on Eve that went to all women. And Esau, with all the science and all the technology that he has, he can't stop a woman from having them labor pains. He might reduce a little bit, but he can't stop it. If you're a woman, you're going to go through that pain. So in the kingdom, we're going to be praying to the Most High. We're going to be teaching the other nations the law, statutes, and commandments. And, a brother asked me, there's a couple of different individuals asked me pretty much the same question about, what about the other nations? The nations are going to be walking the straight and narrow because they're going to be working. They ain't going to have time to sin. They're going to be working. They're going to be doing exactly what we say for them to do. And if they're your slaves and they commit sin and you have to get a bullock, you're going to waste a bullock for this Edomite? They're going to be walking the straight and narrow, man. They're going to be learning them laws, statutes, and commandments, and they're going to be keeping them perfectly, because we're going to have an eye over them, and they know when they go off, that's their ass. Now us, we're going to be perfect. We're not going to commit any sin. That's the fulfillment of the new covenant. The fulfillment of the new covenant will fully come into play in the kingdom of heaven when we're changed. You can say, for argument's sake, that we're in between the old and the new covenant, because we're keeping the laws. We're reading the laws in the scriptures and the law, keeping them. But you're not going to keep them perfectly, because it's impossible. Because if you go out, you sit on hop on a train or a bus, you sit down, you could be sitting down where a woman sat down that was on a period. Now, you're not supposed to be around a woman on a period. But in the kingdom, all of our women will have their own houses, and our concubines will have their own quarters. So when they're on their period, we're not going to know them for a whole 7-day period. But as far as a sin offering is concerned, we're not going to have to perform a sin offering, or we're going to do ceremonies, because we're going to have, because the Passover, the killing of the lamb as a sort of as a sacrifice. You know, it's a sacrifice. Us doing the work is a sacrifice. So in the kingdom of heaven, we will be killing the goats and the sheep and the lamb and the different things that we do when we eat. And it's going to be ceremonial. It's going to be, when you cut it, you're going to pray to the Most High. It's going to be ceremonial. Everything that we do is going to be ceremonial, except for the sin offering. We're not going to have to do a sin offering. Why? Because we're not going to sin. Why would you perform a sin offering when you have not sinned? And there's going to be a sacrifice coming. America's nothing but, now I always say this, America is the great altar of the Most High. That's why we're here. When Edomites say, well, why don't you just go back to your land? If you believe in Israel, go back to Israel, go back to Africa. Well, as a prophet, you're supposed to tell them, well, wait a minute, this is the great altar. So the high priest and the spiritual men, we would have to, pronounce sentence on the great altar, which is America. And you people that are going to die, you are that sacrifice. After we perform our priestly and prophet duties, the Most High is going to say, okay, boom, I'm going to lift y'all up in the heavens, and I'm going to sacrifice this place by fire. That's why the Most High is going to destroy this place, because this is the altar. This is the place where the great sacrifice will take place. So that destruction is ceremonial. That's the great liturgy, if you will, because the Lord is going to come down. The angels are going to come down. The head angel is going to be Michael, along with the other archangels. It's going to be ceremonial. We're going to get beamed up in a ceremonial manner. And then once the ships get high enough and they shoot the missiles, those missiles are going to, the lasers, the missiles are going to come. And that's the grand sacrifice. So that will be the last major sacrifice to take place. But you will have ceremonial things, which you can use the word sacrifice. But as far as sin, a sacrifice for sin, as far as Israel is concerned, we ain't going to be killing no bullock because we committed some sin. We're going to be perfect. Anyway, let me read this. And there's a lot of precepts that come to mind. I didn't want to make this too long. But it says,